Alright everyone, so in this lesson I'm going to be talking about reading and interpreting Facebook ads data. And so I'm going to be taking you inside one of my ad accounts that has a lot of data, and I'm going to be showing you exactly how it is that I read the data, how I get insights from the data, how I troubleshoot my funnel, how I set up my columns in Ads Manager, how do you calculate your KPIs, your key performance indicators, so that you know when to cut ads, and so on, right? So this is really important, and this is a topic that I kind of lacked on in the first Facebook ads blueprint module of the course. And so I think that this lesson is going to fill in a lot of the gaps that people had with the first module. And so without further ado, let's just get right into the content. So the first thing I want to talk about is your column set for Facebook ads. So just so that we all have the same column set while you go through this course, I think that'd be a great idea, just so we can compare, and when you post screenshots in the private group and so on, everyone is looking at the same thing, right? And so I want to share my column set, the one that I use. And this column set really has everything that you need, all the info that you need to see your whole funnel, starting at the ad on Facebook all the way down to people who purchase. And so I'm going to explain the way that I set this up right now. And then I'm actually going to show you inside of Ads Manager. So the best way would probably be for you to just pause and then add all of these to your columns. So the first thing I like to have is the CPM, the cost per 1,000 impressions. And then I like to see how many impressions I actually ended up buying at that cost. So that's really the top of your funnel. How many times was your ad shown? Right? And then out of these impressions, I like to see how many people actually watched all the way, how many people actually watched at least 3 seconds, right? An impression is when someone is shown the ad on their newsfeed. That doesn't mean that they're going to take the time to actually stop and watch your ad. And so that's why 3-second video views are here, and then 95% video viewers. I want to see how many people actually watched the whole video. So that's another great column to have. The average watch time, to see how long are people watching your video on average. And then the next step down the funnel is the click-through rate, right? So the first thing is I like to see the unique click-through rate all, not just the link click, but all. And the difference between click-through rate all and click-through rate link click is that click-through rate all includes clicks just on the ad, right? Like let's say you're scrolling on the newsfeed and you click on a post to open it up full screen, that counts as a click. And so that's why I like putting the unique CTR all on top, right? Because I want to see how many people that clicked on the ad, not actually clicked on the link. And then out of the people who clicked on the ad, how many clicked on the link, right? You can see the drop off by putting these two CTR metrics next to each other. So the other thing I like putting is the unique link clicks, right? I want to see how many people actually click through. This just gives me the percentage click-through rate. I want to see how many people actually click through. And you'll notice that I'm using unique metrics for most of these metrics, right? The reason is that I don't want to see, I don't want people to mess up my data. If just one person starts pressing the button 10 times, I don't want to get excited thinking I got 10 link clicks when really it was just one guy. And so that's why I'm putting the unique metrics, not just the regular ones. So unique link clicks. After that, unique content views. A lot of people don't know the difference between link clicks and content views. Link click is when someone actually clicks the link on the ad. Content view is the pixel event that gets fired up when someone loads the page, right? So people that click might not make it to content view, right? So there's going to be a small drop off from link click to content view. Usually if there's a really large one, that's something that you need to fix. And so that's why I like putting both these metrics here. Now from content views, it funnels down to the add to carts, right? Out of how many people view the product page, how many of them add to cart. From that, it funnels down to checkouts initiated and then purchases, right? And then purchases, I don't use the unique one because, I mean, if someone buys twice, that I'm happy about that, right? That counts as 2 purchases to me. So 2 purchases, I just use the regular purchases, not unique purchases. And then after all of these, this is all the website funnel, right? Content views, add to cart, checkout initiated, purchases. I want to see these 4 metrics, but the cost of them. So my cost per unique content view, my cost per unique add to cart, cost per unique checkout, cost per purchase. The reason you want to pull up these metrics is that these are the metrics that you're going to use your KPIs with, your key performance indicators. And so you want to see how much you're paying for each one of these metrics, and then you can compare that to what you should be paying based on your KPIs. Now, I'm just continuing this column set. There's a few more things. You want to put the budget, right? You want to see how much the budget is for that campaign or ad. The amount spent so far, purchase conversion value. So you spent this much, it brought back this much in sales. I like putting these two next to each other. And then the return on ad spend, right? Just purchase conversion value over amount spent. So the ROAS, and then frequency. This is also useful to see, what the frequency is if you're using up your audiences really fast and so on. So frequency is a great one. And then the last one that I like to put here is the relevance diagnostic metrics. And so not everyone has these metrics yet. They're gradually rolling these metrics out to ad accounts. And so if you don't have these yet, the next best option is the relevance score, but the relevance diagnostic metrics are a lot better than relevance score. And so this is the last thing that you want to pull up on your column set. And so you can just go back and pause both of these slides, set up your column set just to make sure that we have the same column set. And I'm going to show you what this looks like inside of Ads Manager now. All right, so I pulled up one of my ad accounts here, and I've pulled up the stats for this month, as you can see, July 1st to July 27th when I'm recording this video. And so you can see I've got the column set Ecom 5.0. This is the columns that I've just described to you on the slides. So you can see name, delivery, CPM, impressions, 3-second video views, video watches at 95%, video average watch time, unique CTR all, unique CTR link click through, unique link clicks, unique content views, unique add to carts, unique checkout initiated, purchases, cost per unique content view, cost per unique add to cart, cost per unique checkout, cost per purchase, budget, amount spent, purchase conversion value, purchase return on ad spend, frequency, quality ranking, engagement rate ranking, conversion rate ranking. So right here, these are the 3 relevance diagnostic metrics that not everyone has yet. So if you have these 3, that's great, and you want to pull them up. And if not, you can use the relevance score. And so that's the column set that I'm using. And as you can see, there's a lot of metrics here, but you can really see the whole funnel. So just to show you what I mean by that, let me go to the one with the highest amount spent this month. So this campaign here, top interests. So by looking at these metrics, you can really see the whole funnel from just your ads manager, and you can really troubleshoot a lot of stuff. So let's see what this campaign here, I'm just gonna, you can also use filters. This is another great way to read data. For example, campaign delivery is active, ad delivery is active. You can filter by selection, so you can only select certain campaigns and then press filter, and it's only gonna select that one, right? So you can do these filters to make it easier for you to read the data, like I'm gonna do right here. So let's look at this data for this campaign. So I'm getting a really good cost per 1,000 impressions, right? 8.75. Now, another thing I want you to note is that these are all metrics in Canadian dollars. All the dollar metrics are Canadian dollars. So if you want to get this in US dollars, you have to divide by 1.3 approximately. And so this is I'm getting a good CPM on this campaign. You can see the impressions. It's been shown 8.2 million times in the last 27 days or so. Out of these impressions, only 2.7 million people watched the first 3 seconds, right? And so you could compare different creatives, see what's getting you a better 3 seconds video views rate to impressions. Like, if you know what I mean, you can compare these 2 metrics and see where the drop-off is happening versus other campaigns or versus other creatives. So right now I'm only looking at one campaign, so there's nothing to compare with. But you can see that there's a large drop-off happening from impressions to 3-second video views. Now, from 3-second video views to 95% video views is another drop-off, right? So out of the 8.2 million times that my ad was shown, only 1 million actually watched the whole video, which actually is pretty good. Now, the average video watch time is 6 seconds, right? This is another metric that you can compare creatives, see what gets you the best watch time. You want to obviously work on getting this as high as possible. My unique CTR is at 5%, right? So 4.93% people click on the ad when they see it on the feed. They not click on the link, but they're clicking on the ad, like making the ad full screen, or they want to look at the comments. So I'm getting a good CTR all, right? So the CTR all is a good indicator of your thumbnail or your scroll stopper in the video, right? As they're scrolling down the feed, is your ad going to get their attention? So this metric CTR all is what you want to look at in terms of thumbnail and scroll stopper. This is what tells you how well you're doing. The unique CTR link click tells you how good your offer is and how compelling your call to action is, right? Because once people pull up your ad, so 5% of people pulled up the ad, and then only about less than half of those people actually clicked on the link. And so that tells you that maybe you could work on getting a better call to action so that at least half of the people who click on the ad end up clicking through on your link. And so you can see that there's a drop off here again from opening up the ad to clicking on the website. And so unique link clicks, I got 90,000 unique link clicks in the last 27 days. And out of those link clicks, only 87,000 made it to content views, right? So this is what I was talking about with the drop-off. There's a very small drop-off here. Like 3-4% of people aren't making it from link click to content view. That's normal. That's to be expected. There's going to be a small drop-off. Some people are impatient with load times. Some people click by accident, and so on. And so there's a little drop-off here. From the unique content views, you can see it goes to add to cart, right? There's another drop off here from content views to add to cart. So you can, for example, you could split test pages and then look at what landing page creates the biggest drop off from content view to add to cart. And that would be the worst landing page, right? I'm just trying to give you examples of how you can start reading this data and how you can view the whole funnel within Ads Manager. I'm going to give you more actionable advice soon, but this is just an overview. So from add to carts, initiated checkout, another small drop off, right? This is a very small drop off. Out of 11,000 people, 9,500 made it to the checkout. And then here's the last drop off, right? From checkouts initiated to purchases. So it looks like about 2/3 of people who initiated checkout actually ended up purchasing. So you can see the whole funnel starting from impressions to purchases, right? It took me 8.2 million impressions to get 6,540 purchases. So that's why I like pulling up all these columns, and you can really this is really useful to troubleshoot where the drop off is happening in your funnel and find areas of improvement in order to reduce your costs and increase your return on ad spend. Now, the other thing I talked about is these cost metrics here, right? This is what you're going to look at for your KPIs to see if you're matching. So for example, you could have a KPI, a key performance indicator of we want to pay maximum $1 per content view, right? And so in this case, I'm paying 82 cents per content view. And so I would be meeting that KPI, that key performance indicator. So you can see I'm paying 82 cents per content view, 6.5 for add to carts, 7.5 for initiate checkouts, and about $11 per purchase. Like I said, this is all in Canadian dollars. And so these are the cost metrics that I look at when I'm optimizing and killing ad sets and so on. And then budget, amount spent, return on ad spend. So you can see you got a 2.0, a 1.99 return on ad spend. And then these are the ad relevance diagnostic metrics, which are only applicable at the ad level. So that's why there's nothing right now. But if we look at the ad level, we'd see all of those. So that's what the column set looks like in Ads Manager. I would highly recommend that you set up something similar, something that you're comfortable with, obviously, but I think that this is a really good option to see the whole funnel all from your Ads Manager and get a lot of insights out of it. All right, so now I want to talk more about KPIs, key performance indicators. So it's very important to set KPIs. If you don't have KPIs, you don't really know what you're doing, and so you don't even know when you're making money, losing money, if you're on target, or you're just breaking even. And so it's really important to do the math, figure out what your KPIs are before you start running ads. And then you can use those KPIs as pass-fail criteria, right? So for example, you could set a KPI for your return on ad spend at 2x, right? You could say that's our key performance indicator. Anything below 2x ROAS would be below KPI, and then you would pause that campaign. And so that's how KPIs work. They're just metrics and benchmark numbers that you can use to evaluate the performance of your campaigns. And so I want to show you how to calculate these KPIs now. All right, so to make it easy, I actually made a spreadsheet for you guys that you can use to just plug in your numbers and calculate your KPIs automatically using formulas. And so what you can do is there's going to be a link in the lesson notes for this lesson to this spreadsheet here, to this Google Drive sheet. And what you can do is you can go to File and then make a copy. And so you can duplicate the spreadsheet, add it to your own drive, and then you can modify the numbers and calculate your KPIs that way. So this is going to make things really easy. So on the left here, these are the variables that you have to fill in. Now I split it up into two sections with the color code, so I'm just going to quickly explain that so that you're not confused. So the advanced variables here, everything that has this blue background, this is only when you've been running for a while and you have past data, you can fill in these variables. But when you're just starting out, you want to ignore all of the metrics that have the blue. So all of this and all of this, just don't pay attention to this until you have until you have past data on your store. And then you can fill in these variables, and this is going to give you access to all of these advanced KPIs. But just to start off, you only want to focus on the basic ones, which are the break-even cost per purchase, the break-even return on ad spend, and then your profit target, cost per purchase, profit target, return on ad spend. So what you want to do is you want to fill in these variables here. So the variables that you need to fill in, number one is the average order value. If this is a new store, you want to just put the selling price of your product. So for me, the average order value that I'm going to be working with this example, the average order value is 16.57. So that's what I put here, 16.57. Now the next thing is average fees. So just how much are you paying for fees, for payment processing fees on average? I just put a 3% fixed average just to make things easier. Now, average cost of goods sold. How much does your product cost? So if you put selling price instead of average order value here, you just want to put the cost for one product, including shipping. If you used average order value, you want to put your average cost of goods. So you can look at past invoices and see how much did you spend on average per order, right? So for this store here, on average, I'm spending 5.2 in cost of goods per order. And so this is my average order value, average fees, average cost of goods. And then the last thing that you need to fill in is your profit target. So what's your profit target in percent? So for me, it's 20. So I put 20% here. And so this is all you need to fill in. And once you fill in all these variables, you're going to get access to these break-even and profit target KPIs. So the cost per purchase here, based on these numbers, I need to get a cost per purchase of 10.87. If I get a cost per purchase of 10.87, that means that I'm not losing money, but I'm not making money either. I'm just breaking even. Now that amounts to a return on ad spend on average of 1.52. So this would be my break-even return on ad spend, 1.52. And this is my break-even cost per purchase. Now, if I want to hit this 20% profit, I need a 7.56 cost per purchase, right? And I need a 2.2 return on ad spend to hit my 20% profit. So by calculating these KPIs, it makes it a lot easier to know when you should pause ads, when you should try to scale, and so on, right? Because you should only try to scale if you're hitting your profit target KPIs, and you should pause any ads that are below your break-even KPIs, right? And so this makes things really simple. It's all laid out here. And another thing that I put here is currency conversion, because like I was showing you inside of my ads manager is in Canadian dollars. So these numbers here are based on the US dollar numbers that I put here, right? Because these numbers are in US dollars, US 16.57, but my ad account is in Canadian dollars. So I put a little a box here that you can just type in the currency conversion from US dollar to your currency. So for me, it's 1.32. So 1.32, and then boom, now that you can see these numbers just went up because now they're converted to Canadian dollars. So my break-even cost per purchase, no profit, no loss, is 14.35. If we go back inside of Ads Manager, you'll see that this month I was spending $11 per purchase with this campaign, right? Let me just go to all campaigns. I was spending 10.8 per purchase on average this month. And so if you go back to the spreadsheet, you'll see that it's well under the break-even KPIs. So I'm definitely making money, and it's just over the profit target KPIs. So I'm not hitting my 20%, but in reality, I am hitting my 20% because Facebook doesn't track all of the purchases. And so in reality, I did hit this 20%. But these metrics just makes it a lot easier to know whether or not you're hitting your numbers, and how far off you are, and if you're losing money, and if you should pause campaigns and so on, right? I see questions all the time. Should I pause this campaign? Should I scale? And you should really have these clear pass-fail criteria to know when you should pause your campaigns and when you should attempt to scale. Now, another useful thing that I put in the spreadsheet is this baseline per conversion rate. So this is basically based on a 1-to-1 ratio of earnings to sessions. This is a complete estimate, so you don't want to pay too much attention to this, but this is just based on my experience. Out of the multiple stores that I've ran and scaled, I've never seen a consistently profitable store that has a less than 1-to-1 earnings to sessions ratio. So for example, if we go back to this store, this month, 300,000 in sales, 275,000 sessions, right? So that's over a 1-to-1 ratio of sales to sessions. I've never seen it below this. If you see something below this, like if you see a store that has like 100,000 in sales, 300,000 in sessions, it's very likely that it's not going to be profitable. And I'm talking about purchase campaigns, right? So most of these campaigns are purchase optimized campaigns. If you start running like traffic campaigns on Facebook, it's going to completely change this. But for purchase campaigns, you need this ratio of 1-to-1 at least sales to sessions, and it's a lot better if you can get it higher. And so based on this observation that I made that all my stores had a 1-to-1 or better ratio, I use this to create a baseline purchase conversion rate metric. So basically, what conversion rate do you need to get this 1-to-1 ratio? So with this particular average order value, I need a conversion rate of at least 6% to get this 1-to-1 sales to sessions ratio. So this doesn't really mean anything, like I said, but this is just a good reference point of what kind of conversion rate are you going to need to get to be profitable for a certain selling price, right? So if I have a low selling price like this, $16.50, I need a good conversion rate. But if you have a high selling price like $50, you wouldn't need as high of a conversion rate. You would only need 2% of a conversion rate. And so this is just something that you can do to get an idea of where your conversion rate should be at. And so in this case, it's at 6%. Now, I want to talk about the advanced variables now. So this is once you've already been running ads for a while and you've collected data about your funnel. And so you can fill in these variables here. And this is actually just, if I scroll down here, this is just these variables here, the conversion funnel variables. So what you need to do is fill in the percentages for each step. So add to cart 13, right? I got it from here. Reach checkout 9.26, and then sessions converted 6.37. So if you fill all of this in, it's going to use the cost per purchase to get the metrics for higher funnel metrics. So this is going to calculate what your break-even cost per initiate checkout is, what your break-even cost per add to cart is, what your break-even cost per view content is, right? So now I know that I can spend on average $7 per add to cart. I don't have to only look at purchases, right? Before I could only say I need to spend $14 per purchase max. Now I can say I can spend $7 per add to cart max, and so I can pause ads faster, right? I can pause ads based on the cost per add to cart or even the cost per view content, right? Because I know based on my historical data that if I'm spending more than 91 cents per content view, it's probably not going to be profitable. Same thing here, right? For my profit target KPIs, now I know that if I want to hit my 20% profit target, I need to spend about $7 per initiate checkout on average. I need to spend $5 per add to cart on average. I need to spend 64 cents per view content on average, right? And so if we look at how this actually compares to my real metrics, you'll see that my cost per add to cart this month was 6.24, right? And so you'll see that to be on profit target, I need to be at 4.88, right? So I was spending a little bit too much per cost per add to cart, but like I said, Facebook doesn't track everything. So in reality, this would probably be right about on KPI. And so this is what KPIs are for, right? You can really play around with this for yourself. It's really useful to get an idea. Like, for example, if you have a goal of hitting 30% profit, you can see that you need a 2.81 return on ad spend with these numbers. Or you could also raise the prices, for example. If you could get the average order value to 20%, to $20, then your return on ad spend would only need to be 2.44 to hit your profit. So you can really play around with these numbers and see what kind of metrics you would need in order to hit your goals. So now that I've covered KPIs and how to calculate them, how to use them, I want to touch a little bit on statistical significance. Now, I'm no data scientist, so I'm not like an expert about this, but this is important if you're running ads and you want to properly read your data. You need to understand that if you have a small sample of data, which means if you don't have a lot of data, for example, if you are evaluating the cost per purchase of an ad set, but you only have 1 or 2 purchases, that means you have a very small sample size of purchases. And so with a small sample size, what happens is that it's a lot more affected by randomness. With a small sample, 1 or 2 purchases, that's basically random. It's not statistically significant. The more data you have, let's say you get it up to 10 or 20 purchases, at that point it's like, okay, it's probably not just random, right? Because it happened 10 times and it's maintaining the same cost per purchase. This is probably a statistically significant result. This is a good audience and a good ad, and I can probably scale this. However, when you just have a small sample of 1 or 2 purchases and you get excited and you want to scale an ad, that's not the right thing to do because it could just be random. It's not statistically significant. And what happens when people don't understand statistical significance is that they basically end up chasing randomness, right? They're gonna follow ad sets that get them sales, but it's not statistically significant. And so essentially they're basically just following randomness, and they're not following the data that they're getting, and so they're really getting nowhere. They're not making any progress. And so it's important to understand statistical significance. I'm gonna talk about this more later in the module, but the main thing you need to understand is that when you're evaluating an ad set or a campaign or an ad based on a metric, you need to make sure that sample size for that metric is large enough. And a commonly stated number is that you should have at least 20 observations for the data to be significant, and I'd recommend at the very least 10 observations. So this means that, for example, if you have an ad set that's doing really well, you don't want to attempt to scale it until you have at least 10 purchases and you have that same cost per purchase that's meeting your KPIs. Ideally, you'd want to wait at least till 20 purchases. Once you have 20 purchases and you're maintaining that good cost per purchase, it's meeting your KPIs, you know that it's not randomness, and you can probably scale that campaign or ad set or whatever it is. All right, so now I want to talk about what the most important metrics are for reading Facebook ads data, because at the start I showed you all of the different columns that I use, and so if you're not used to having that many columns, it might be confusing, and I want to make sure that you know what the most important metrics are. So what we care about the most is our return on ad spend, right? Return on ad spend is the total amount of purchase, the value of all the purchases that you've generated from the ads divided by the amount spent, so the return on your ad spend. And that's what we care about the most at the end of the day, right? Like if you have a high CPM, but you have a really good return on ad spend, you don't really care about the CPM, right? What you care about is the return on ad spend. And so purchase related metrics are the most important: return on ad spend, cost per purchase, and so on. However, purchases are expensive to get, right? If you want to have a lot of data to read and to work with, you can't really use purchases as your main metric because it's going to be expensive to collect data for each audience you test and so on. And so I put it here as an example. If your cost per purchase is $20, you'll need to spend $200 just to get 10 purchases, right? And I said that the minimum amount of observations for something to be statistically significant, so that you can scale it without worrying about it just being random and that it got lucky at the start and now it's not going to do well. You need to wait till it has at least 10 sales. And assuming your cost per purchase is $20, that's $200 just to get those 10 observations. And so it's expensive. It's an expensive type of data to collect. And so if you want to spend less money and you want to be faster in your testing, you can use higher funnel metrics such as add to carts or content views to make decisions faster. So as I showed you in the KPI sheet, once you have past data about your funnel, you can get KPIs for cost per add to cart, cost per content view, and you can use those KPIs to make your decisions instead of the cost per purchase, because this will take too long, right? And there's trade-offs, obviously, because purchases are a lot more reliable. If you base your decision on higher funnel metrics, you might not get the expected result that you thought. If you base it on purchases, it takes a long time to collect that data and so on, but it's the most accurate type of test that you can do. And so there's trade-offs between which metrics you want to use, and it's really up to you and based on how much budget you have, how experienced you are, and how fast you want to test. And so I expanded on that idea a bit here, is that if you're using the cost per purchase to make decisions, it's reliable, but it's expensive and slow. And so this is if you have a large budget and you want to do everything right and you're not in a rush, you want to use cost per purchase to make your decisions almost all of the time, and then you want to wait till you have a lot of purchases to evaluate the results. Now, if you want to test fast and you want to, you don't want to spend a lot of money testing and you want to test fast and just try to be profitable as fast as possible, then you want to use the cost per unique content view to make decisions. Like I said, it's not as reliable, but it's cheaper, right? Because if your cost per view content is like 50 cents, you can spend $5 to $10 and you'll have enough data to make a decision. And like I said, it's fast, right? And so that's the trade-off. And it's kind of like a spectrum, right? You can also use the cost per add to cart. So this is somewhere in between, right? The cost per add to cart is, it's going to be in between in terms of the cost to collect that data. And it's also going to be in between the two in terms of how reliable and fast it is. And so it's up to you to decide what metrics you want to pick to make your decisions. And that's why I gave you the KPI calculation spreadsheet, so that you can easily calculate your KPIs for all of the different metrics of your website funnel. Now, this is another important concept in stats that I just wanted to quickly talk about in this lesson, is regression to the mean. And what regression to the mean states is that basically everything is random. And so if you evaluate data over a set of time, so let's say this is the return on ad spend over time, right? This is your return on ad spend over time. And let's say that this mean right here, this average is 2.0. So you're getting on average a 2 return on ad spend, right? What's going to happen as you look at your campaign's day-to-day is this is pretty much what it's going to look like. It's going to fluctuate all the time. It's just going to keep fluctuating. But whenever you see a large fluctuation in one direction, right? If your mean, like for the last 30 days, you've had an average of 2.0 return on ad spend, and then one day you just see it's like way higher or way lower, essentially that's luck. It's randomness. And what regression to the mean states is that it's probably going to go back to this average really soon. And so the reason that I'm telling you this is that, number one, when you're looking at data and you're trying to make decisions for your ad sets, you don't want to look at just one day, because it fluctuates. It looks like this. If you're looking at just one day, you're not getting the full picture. So you want to look at least 3 days to eliminate this variance, and so that you're looking at just the mean when you're evaluating the performance. So when you're making decisions for your ad sets, look at least 3 days, and I would recommend up to 7 days. So I would recommend looking at 3 to 7 days, the last 3 to 7 days, how your ad sets and campaigns performs, and use that to make decisions. And this will eliminate the variance, right? The randomness. And the other reason why I wanted to show you this is that if you've been having good days for like a month now, and on average you're at 2.0 ROAS, and then suddenly you wake up and then you're at like 1.1 ROAS, and the performance is just horrible today. That is probably randomness, and it's going to regress to the mean. So don't panic, don't pause everything, because you're just going to mess up how the things work. If you just let everything play out, what's probably going to happen is it's going to return to the mean, because that's regression to the mean. It states that when you have a large swing in one direction, it's probably randomness, and so it's going to return to the mean soon. And so yeah, that's what I wanted to introduce you to this concept, just so that you know that it's better to look at a lot of data to eliminate the variance, and also not to panic when you just have a bad day. It's just regular inconsistencies, and it's going to regress to the mean. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about breaking down data. Once you have enough data on your campaigns and on your ads, you can break it down by various different things. You can break it down by, the age, the gender, the country, the creative, the placement, the platform that they're using. You can break it down by all of these different groups and see what's performing best within these different segments. And so this is really useful to see what you're doing, like out of what you're doing, what's actually working, right? Because you don't really, unless you break down the data, you won't be able to know what's working well right now for you, and you won't be able to gain insights from that and do more of it. It's sort of like the 80-20 rule, where it states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. What you want to do with breaking down data is you want to break it down and identify that 20% that's getting you 80% of results, and you want to narrow it down to that and focus on that and do more of that in order to scale. And so I'm going to go into my ads manager and show you examples of that. I just want to touch on a few more things here. So before you narrow down to a specific breakdown segment, you want to make sure that it's statistically significant. This goes back to what I was saying before. You don't want to narrow down your targeting, or whatever it may be. You don't want to narrow that down unless you have statistically significant data telling you that is the better segment to focus on, right? And so, for example, if you break down an ad set that's doing really well, and then you see that 55 plus women are getting a really, really cheap cost per purchase, right? But you only have 2 purchases. That doesn't really mean anything, right? Because it's not statistically significant. And so if you did try to narrow down to that segment to 55 plus women, expecting that you'd get that same cost per purchase that you got, it wouldn't happen, because the data wasn't statistically significant. And so you would try to narrow down to that, and then you would get completely different results. And so the most useful breakdowns in my experience, number 1 is age and gender. Narrowing down your targeting by age and gender makes all the difference. And so this is my favorite breakdown to start off with. When I start off by targeting really broad, and then I break down to see what my target audience is. Now, country is also really useful to see if there's any countries that are specifically doing really, really well for you, if you're spending money on countries that aren't doing well for you, and so on. Creative. Now, I put this in bold because most people don't really know about this breakdown, I think, but it's really, really, really useful to see what creatives are pulling in the majority of the results for your brand, right? Especially when you have multiple ads per ad sets, you can break down your overall account by creative and see which creatives are actually getting you results. Now, the last thing is placement. It also helps to break down by placement, especially if you're doing automatic placements, right? You want to see, where is Facebook spending your money towards? Which placements are you going on? And is there any placement that has opportunity for scaling in, right? Like, this is why breakdown is useful, because you want to identify opportunities and identify things that you're doing that are working and that you can do more of. And so placement is another great breakdown, right? Like, if you break down by placement and you notice that stories are doing really well, that could give you the insight of, I need to create more ads for stories, and then that would help you create more ads for stories, and then you would be able to get more money spent on that placement. So I'm going to hop into my ads manager now and show you some of these concepts applied. All right, so I'm back inside of ads manager, and I'm going to show you some examples of breaking down data. So I'm just going to pick one of these campaigns here, one of the cold traffic campaigns. This top interest one is a good example. So I'm going to filter by selection now. You can do this, just filter by selection, just to make things easier when I break down the data. So to break down data, you just go over here, break down, and then you want to go by delivery. And then you have age, gender, business, you have all the options here, right? And so I said one of my favorites one is age and gender, so let's just do that for now. So you can see that I'm targeting females only. And if I sort by the amount of purchases, we can see what my best demographic is. So we can see that I'm getting most of my results from 25 to 25 to 44-year-old females, right? So I should, that's good insights. I should make ads tailored towards that, because that's clearly where most of my volume is coming in. Now you can see I'm also getting some from these age groups, but overall, most of it's coming from 25 plus women. So that's a good insight. Now you could break down by the countries, right? So you can see that by far most of it is coming from T4, and that's just because of the way that I structured this campaign. Now, if we break down by placement, we can see what placements are actually doing well for this campaign, because I'm doing automatic placements and I have all kinds of ads in here. So let's sort by the amount spent. We can see that Instagram stories actually spent quite a bit, right? They spent 8.2K for a 2.0 return on ad spend. So, maybe that's something that I could focus more on, is creating more story content, so that I can get more spend on this placement, since it seems to be doing well. Facebook newsfeed seems to be my best placement, right? So I should keep focusing on making sure that I'm responding to all comments on my Facebook ads, all of that. I mean, this is pretty optimized. Like, this is a really optimized ad account, so there's not that many insights to get out of this anymore. But I'm just trying to show you how you could read your data and break it down so that you can get some insights. Now, those are pretty much the most useful ones in terms of delivery breakdowns. But what you can actually do, I'm just going to clear the breakdown right now, remove all breakdowns. What you can do is, if you go to, I got to get used to this new ads manager, but if you go to more tools, show creatives, if you go to here, this is going to give you a creative breakdown, right? So this is for that one campaign that I selected. And so all of this is going to be blurred, right? Because I don't want you to see the store, but you can see these are all different ad creatives, different videos, and I can see which video is performing the best this month. And there's a clear winner, right? There's one single video that spent 30,000 and got 2.2 return on ad spend. All the other ones did okay, right? Like the second best spent 18,000, but not nearly as good of a return on ad spend. And so this tells me that I should probably start making more creative similar to this one, since it seems to be doing so well, right? And so that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to make more creative similar to this one. And I'm probably going to see like some of these bad ads here, like this one, 1.3 return on ad spend. I'm probably going to go and just pause that ad for all of my campaigns, since it's not doing well, right? I have a lot of data here, 114 observations, and it's getting a poor return on ad spend, well below my break-even KPI. So this ad I might pause, but this is a very interesting breakdown, because you can see which ads are doing best for you, and clearly this one is doing best. And so I'm definitely going to be making more ads similar to this one. So the last thing that I want to talk about in this lesson about reading data is how to troubleshoot your funnel. And so if you're not meeting your KPIs, your key performance indicators, so for example, if you're spending more than your break-even cost per purchase and you're losing money, then you need to work on improving your funnel. And so the way that you do this is you identify the drop-off and you fix it. You identify where the biggest drop-off is happening and you work to fix it. And so, I showed you at the start of the video all the columns inside of my ads manager, and I showed you the whole funnel starting from, when someone sees an ad on Facebook to when someone makes the purchases. And there's so many different steps in between that. And you need to figure out at what step are you losing the people? At what step are you losing the customers? That's where the problem is, and that's what you need to fix. And so that's really why I want you to pull up all those columns on your ads manager, is that you can see the whole funnel and you can see where the drop-off is happening. And so I put two examples of this here. If you have a low link click-through rate, right? And so if you have a high click-through rate all, right? Like you're getting a decent click-through rate all, and then out of that you have a super low link click-through rate. So people click on your ad, like they open it up full screen on Facebook, but they don't click the link to your website. They just click on the ad. And so the drop-off in this case would be happening at the ad. So that would mean that your scroll stopper, your thumbnail is good enough to get people's attention and to click on the ad, but the actual ad itself isn't good enough to make them click on the link and go on your website. So the drop-off is happening at the ad. That means that your ad is not good enough. So maybe the call to action in your ad isn't good enough. Maybe your ad is just bad, but that is where the drop-off is happening. And so that's what you need to fix. You need to test different ads to get people to actually make it on your website, and then see if that helps, and then do the same thing again, right? After you do that, if that fixed the drop-off, identify where the next drop-off is happening. Another example, if you have a high click-through rate, link click-through rate, right? So if people make it to your website, but they don't add to cart, the drop-off is happening on your product page, right? If you have a low add to cart rate, that's where the drop-off is happening. And so you need to work on your product page, work on you need to fix that. You need to make sure that once people get on your website, they actually add to cart. If they don't, then that's not going to work. And so that's where the drop off is happening in this case, if you have a high link click-through rate but a low add to cart. So just continuing on this, unfortunately, it's impossible for me to make general pass-fail criteria for each step of the funnel for all stores, right? Because everyone's numbers are going to be different. It depends on who your audience is, how you're structuring your marketing. It's a ton of different factors, like what your product is. And unfortunately, I just can't make general criteria for all stores because it just wouldn't be good advice. However, I can give you some ballpark pass-fail criteria. So based on what I usually see with my own stores, this is what you should be aiming to be at. Now, like I said, this is just ballpark. If you're under these numbers, you don't have to panic. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be unprofitable because, like I said, it depends on a ton of different factors. This is just to give you an idea. So these are the 3 ballpark pass-fail criteria that I'm giving you. So the first one is CTR all, not link click, CTR all. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is the click-through rate on your ad. People just clicking on your ad to see more, not clicking on the link, just opening up the ad full screen on their device. And so if the CTR is below 3%, that's a bit worrisome. Usually I'm going to see the CTR at above 3%. If you're below this, that means that the first thing people see when they look at your ad isn't attention grabbing enough, right? I wrote here, if you're below these metrics for the first one, you need to improve your scroll stopper, so the first 3 seconds of the video, the ad copy, especially the first line of the ad copy, because that also grabs people's attention, and the thumbnail. These are the 3 things that people see like right away when they get shown an ad, and this is what's going to determine whether or not they click on it and open it up to see more. And so that's the first thing. You need the CTR above 3% in most cases. Now the second is the CTR link click. So once they actually open up your ad and they read more, they look at the comments, how many of them actually click on the shop now button or on the link in your ad. And so you want the CTR link click to ideally be above 1%. Higher the better, obviously, but you want it to be above 1%. If it's not above 1%, you need to improve your video, not just the scroll stopper, the actual video, right? The video isn't convincing people to click on your website. The call to action, right? Maybe you don't have enough of a strong call to action. You need to tell people what to do. People really need to be told what to do. You need to tell them, click on the shop now button to order yours, right? Maybe that's something that you're missing in your ad if you're seeing a low link CTR. And so you need to improve the call to action or the video. Now the third one is add to cart conversion rate. This is once people actually land on your website, what percentage of them show interest in the product and add to cart. Ideally, you want to see this at above 10%. Now this is for lower-ish ticket products, right? I usually sell products under $30 selling price. And so if you have a higher selling price, obviously this add to cart rate is going to be lower. And that's why I said it's impossible to make general criteria for all stores. But in my experience, the add to cart conversion rate is going to be above 10% for a good funnel. And so if your add to cart conversion rate is below 10%, you need to work on your product page, your product description, the main angle that you're selling in your product description, right? The price, maybe it's too expensive and people don't want to buy it. And so these are the 3 ballpark pass-fail criteria that I'd recommend working with when you're trying to troubleshoot your funnel. And I matched up so you can see the steps to improve it for each step if you're below this pass-fail criteria. All right, so that is all for this lesson on reading and interpreting data. I hope that you got a lot of value out of it, especially the KPI spreadsheet part and the troubleshooting part. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, just ask in the private group and I'll do my best to get back to you eventually. And on that note, I'll see you in the next lesson about the Facebook ads launch strategy.